What's up, guys? Ricci here, bringing you another episode of F1 Podcast. Just kidding. Ricci's away in Mexico. However, it is the next episode of the F1 Podcast. I am Andrew, along with Erica. Erica, say hello.
Hi, everyone.
Yes, Ricci went to Mexico with his girlfriend for the week for a much-deserved vacation. As a result, you are stuck with us two this week to provide you episode 5.
Stuck.
Of the second of the season 2. Yeah, stuck. But you know, it's a great opportunity just for us to kind of go. Instead of Ricci this week, we have Erica's cat.
Yep, he's here on my lap.
He's here on the lap.
Ready to contribute. He's got many thoughts and opinions. You know, it's quite
Kinda
an
like,
intellectual being right there. Oh, he's caught my headphones. That's cool.
Probably thinking, where's the wet food? Or when can I go to the bathroom? And the thing is, you can go to the bathroom anytime if you wanted to. Oh, there he is. Look how cute he is.
Hi. Gave me a little nose boop.
That's perfect. And he's just going to yank your headphones right out of there.
Yep, that's how we're going to do it.
Perfect. Well, Erica, welcome back to a wonderful week. How are you doing so far?
Oh, it's been mate. It's been a right time the last few days.
Been a right time down under. Enjoying
down
some
under,
racing.
In Melbourne.
I come from a land of love. Well, that was a good one. I like that. Nice little Melbourne.
Melbourne. Down in Albert Park.
We should get Danny Ricardo to come onto the show and see if he can rate our Australian accent.
Did you see the thing he did with Lando Norris where he had him like trying to guess like what the Australianisms mean?
Yeah.
It's like, what are thongs?
It's honestly comedy gold between those two. Despite what Drive to Survive tried to depict between the two, those two seem to be on
they like each other.
Level head, like each other, and love and life on that team.
I think now they've kind of got a better working relationship too, right? Like anytime you're working with a new driver, I think you're like, how's this going to go? Are we going to be a team? Are we just going to be fighting each other the entire time? What's the deal? But I think they've hit their stride.
Yeah, and Lando had a good point last year, right? He had, they're bringing in Danny Rick on a big money deal, and, Lando has to wanted to prove himself to be the guy. So, of course, there's going to be a little bit of animosity to the start. But I think with the whole contract extension going on, they know who the 1 and 2 is. And I think it's much more, even like when they they reviewed the DTS episodes together, they even thought it was kind of bogus, some of the stuff that they did. But
yeah, and it's all how it cuts together, right? But
exactly.
We're not here to talk about Drive to Survive this time. We're here to talk about Melbourne.
Exactly. The Australian GP happened this past weekend. We are filming on April 12th, which was Tuesday, but the race was going on at 1 a.m. on Sunday. Now, I don't know about you, Erica, but I tried to stay up. Evidently enough, I went out for a work function on Friday, having been up at 5 o'clock. So I tried to stay up for quali at 2 o'clock on Saturday morning. But to think that 23 hours of, being awake and some alcohol in your system didn't mix to keep you up for that long. Who would have thought?
Yeah, definitely a bit of a struggle. I was at the Raptors game on Friday and thought I would watch a movie, stick around, but by the time I think 12:30 came about, I was like, oh geez, no, not this is not it. This is not it.
And then we both tried to see if we could watch the race together on Sunday morning at 1. But we were both just
passed out.
Yeah, both were just exhausted going forward.
So for all of you Europeans who are complaining about race times, it could have been worse.
Yeah, it was funny watching during the broadcast and how Crofty and them all can mention, for those people just waking up in the UK, go to Sky Glass Cures. I'm like, dude, what about shout out to the people that stayed up?
I know. I haven't even gone to bed yet.
Shout out to the people that have stayed up to the, to watch the race at 2 a.m. overseas.
I know a few of my coworkers are in Saskatoon. Shout out Saskatoon, what up? And they're 2 hours behind us here in Toronto. So a lot of them, it was 11 p.m. for quali and midnight. So everyone was just pounding coffees at 10 p.m. so they could stay up and watch the race.
Absolute legends. I love it. Well, the race was quite interesting. So quite interesting weekend, I would say for sure. First off, we had the new track layouts. We had a bunch of different reprofiled turns, especially the one in I think it was around turn 4 or 5, where instead of a chicane, it was now a fast curve, right hand to left hander, and then some of the chicanes got brought back, or some of the turns got you know effectively reprofiled, which made it for better conducive racing. I thought it was a lot of fun in terms of being back in Melbourne. The last time we were in Melbourne, COVID hit right then and there, and they had to cancel the race mid-time. They had a practice run, and then it was pretty much done.
Yeah, I mean, it was exciting to be back this year. It's, I think, a long time coming, and I know obviously a lot of fans of the sport were really upset that they weren't able to come and be nearby, but I thought it was, a great return to Australia for the GP here this year. Lots of exciting stuff happened in both the practice, quali, and the race itself, which, some of it was interesting things going on with people still trying to figure out the car. Some of it was people just making some driver errors and just some exciting wheel to wheel action. So, very much a fun thing to watch, even if, we were a little bit behind having to watch the replays instead of watching live.
That's okay. I thought it was, yeah, as you mentioned, a very, very well fought contest for the team, especially in the midfield battle. That was a crazy midfield battle between from 8th to 12th at one point.
Yeah.
And tire management was a very key thing this weekend, I find.
Some interesting strategies going on there for sure. I think obviously what comes to mind first and foremost if you're talking tires is Alex Albon going all the way to the end of the race on that set of hard tires without a change there. I mean, was that a strategic decision, or was that someone maybe not paying attention where they should have in order to call him in? But
like, it was baffled by mine. It was like 57 laps on a hard, and some of these guys couldn't have done like 25 to 30 on the hard before they started getting graining on their left front tire. They had to go effectively pit. So like the tire whisper, Alex Albon in Australia was incredible to watch. And I don't even know. I thought it was I think it's a disqualification if you don't pit for another set of hard or for a set of dry tires. But I just love Williams being like, let's just take a gamble on this, because that's such a Jos Capito move. Take a gamble on it and see if it works out, and it clearly did. They were able to build, like, he was able to set personal bests in sectors on like lap 54, 55, and I'm like, dude, what the hell?
And also the fact that I think up until he pitted, he was in 7th position on the track with a set of tires that were that old. And I know obviously some people dropped back once they were pitting, but just the fact that he was still racy and kind of competitive on those tires is, I think, a testament to his driving ability. It's also just so surprising because, like you said, some of these guys couldn't get more than like 20, 25 laps in with a hard tire, but just getting them up to a temperature where you can drive on these Pirelli hards this season has been an interesting challenge. So, I mean, I saw a meme where they were kind of showing like Albon teaching a class on tire management and like Checo's framed in the background after last year. Stroll's been kicked out and is standing on the lawn of the school. Like, felt apropos after what we've seen the last couple of weeks. So clearly we're not the only ones recognizing it, but shout out to Albon. Very much a good drive on his part.
Love this drive. We'll go through the top 10 right now. So we had Leclerc winning the race by 20 seconds over Perez, followed by Russell, then Hamilton, then Norris, then Ricardo, then Ocon, then Bottas, then Gasly, and then Alex Albon finishing 10th on the wonderful one-stop strategy that worked out to perfection. Anything catch your eye this weekend with regards to, I guess in the sense for me, what really caught my eye was the performance of Mercedes overall. Like, we had George Russell in a podium and getting his first podium position as a Mercedes. Let's call it first podium position overall. But he did a really great job with that race. And, it was interesting watching Hamilton be the number 2 this
Yeah,
weekend.
definitely a change of pace in multiple senses of the term over at Mercedes. One, seeing a car that was more competitive compared to what we've seen the last few weeks, which is exciting because that's what we've all come to expect from them as a constructor. But like you said, Mercedes giving Hamilton the instruction not to race George or for George to let him pass and to kind of let him stay in that first position between the two cars. Very out of character. And I think, was that when Hamilton had that radio thing where he was like, oh, come on, man, like, I don't want to hear that, and was very upset about it?
Yeah, like Hamilton got caught off on that second safety car, I think, where he just pitted before, and then the safety car happened, and then George came into pit, which then dropped back Hamilton to 5th, and then George was kept up to 3rd. So, you get unlucky in safety cars, e.g. Checo Perez a couple weekends ago, right? So you're going to get caught out by it. It was fun. Hamilton did race, but yeah, I was interested in that dynamic when the team literally told him to, don't race, hold up and get positions, because I think they want to just get maximum points possible right now without affecting any cars. But it's quite a refreshing pace to see that that they didn't want to swap, that they're letting George go ahead of Hamilton, because it is still early on. But we clearly think we know who should win the World Drivers' Championship at this point.
Yeah, and I mean, it's pretty obvious, I think, to everyone. So I'm going to right now here eat my own words that I said a while back when I was saying like, oh, Leclerc is an overrated driver and Sainz should be who Ferrari pins their hopes on. I think I said that in our like preseason one there. Yeah, I was wrong. I'm just gonna be honest about that. Because this guy is doing phenomenally well. I mean, not obviously like Ferrari's got a great car this year, but comparing, his ability to, unleash the beast versus what we're seeing with Sainz, who was just really struggling from the get-go, even in some of the practice sessions. But I mean, P9 and quali, not really what you would come to expect from him at this point, when everyone was thinking, this would be his chance to, win a race, be on a podium yet again. Was kind of surprising. And then, what was it, second lap of the race, bit of a driver error there, spun out into the gravel, and you call it quits. That's just not what we expect. But Charles Leclerc just pulling ahead in the standing for the World Driving Championship, which is great to see and exciting given the potential that we've all known he's had for the last few years.
I think he's at 34 he's 34 points ahead of, ironically, George Russell, who is in second place somehow with that car. But reliability is king, and we'll get to that point later with the team that had some reliability issues this week. But yeah, Charles is just on another level this year in terms of driving. He controlled that race from start to finish. The only one problem he had was the wheel spin off the second safety car restart, which Verstappen almost caught up to him, but he defended like crazy and he was able to win by 20 seconds, kind of had a breeze, and it's fun to watch. Like, it is something different. It's different, right? We're not seeing Hamilton, dominate. We're not seeing like Verstappen dominate. We're seeing like a whole new fresh guy. I know they had some domination in 2019 with regards to being able to win, but hey, like, I'm all about the young new blood in the F1. It's going to only grow the sport, I think, for young fans too, who are going to be really wanting to follow it. And there's a bit of romance coming. I know you won't agree with this because you're a McLaren fan, but there's a bit of romance seeing Ferrari back on top in the F1 world.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, though. I mean, like, I was a Schumacher fan growing up. I'm big on Ferrari too. So, yeah, it's been a disappointing few years for them. So it's nice to see them performing, I think, where a lot of longtime fans would expect Ferrari to be. Mm-hmm. So, also, I love that car. I just think they did a phenomenal job. Honestly.
It's such a sexy car. But speaking of McLaren, very well done this week, I think, for your boys.
I am so thrilled. Like, we were all hoping that they would be able to kind of turn a corner with that 2-week break between races. And I think that they've done it, and they've done a really good job. Obviously, part of what's allowed them to come P5, P6 was unfortunately Verstappen toward the end of the race having, another mechanical issue in his car, kind of calling it kaputs. But I mean, they were looking good in practice. They were having some pretty competitive times going up in quali. I mean, this is kind of where I would expect them to be, and to be kind of putting hopefully a little more pressure on people. But what is it? Yeah, there was a pretty significant gap from Hamilton to Norris at this point. So I'd love to see that kind of close in the next couple of races. We've got another 2-week break before Imola. So despite the fact that it's Easter and obviously everyone wants to take a little time to be with their families, it would be great to see if they're able to turn it around a little bit even more, just so they're starting to put pressure and really being a strong contender for the third place constructor as we go forward into the rest of the season.
I totally agree on that case. It was nice to see Danny Rick finish in his home race up in the points. Mm-hmm. I'm happy that it was pretty much for all 58 laps. Norris was fending off Ricardo, and they just kind of kept going following. I think there was team orders there not to pass and get his maximum point. You want to try and get as maximum points as possible this early on in the season. So it was good to see that. I would say the most unlucky driver of the weekend was Fernando Alonso. He had
so
such
much
an
potential.
amazing, I know, right? So much potential. He had such an amazing Q3 lap, qualifying, Q3 lap. He was out. He had a purple sector in the first one, had a green, had a personal best in the second two. And then they just had a hydraulic issue that he couldn't break down. And then he lost it and spinned it into bend it into the wall. Very unlucky. And then during the race, he had great pace, but he just got caught behind the midfield, and no one was passing Stroll in his defense. As erratic and as penalizing as it was, because he did get a 5-second penalty for sweeping in the straights. We'll get to that later. But yeah, just an unlucky weekend for Fernando. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I want to know what could have been in this race had he been able to complete that qualifying lap, because like we said, it was an absolute cracker. Probably would have ended up on pole had he been able to finish it, because he had that purple sector and was coming in hot on the third sector as well. I mean, I do think that the Alpine is a pretty strong contender this year. We saw it in the last few races. It's a much more competitive car than it was last season, or even the last couple seasons with Renault. And I mean, Ocon is showing that he's, definitely a contender for the midfield and stuff like that as a driver. Alonso's got so much experience behind him too, and he's still so hungry for titles and for points. I mean, we saw it last year with Alpine, and with him helping Ocon get the podium last year. So I mean, I'm curious how that would have played out if we got to see an Alonso and Leclerc battle going for top spot during this race. Obviously reliability has been a bit of an issue for some of these cars, and Alpine's definitely not been exempt from that, clearly as we saw during that lap, but also even beforehand. So I don't know, I'm just hoping they kind of bring it back, and I want to see them shake it up a little bit. It would be cool.
I think Fernando will at one point win this season. He has so much potential. He amplified that on Q3. You can see that in the race. I think he's going to win at some point this year. Again, it depends on if he's lucky, or depends on the reliability. I don't see why not Alpine can't, battle for those coming down the road, especially as the season goes on and they put upgrades onto the car. They could definitely do so as well. A team that kind of went backwards this weekend were Haas.
Yeah.
Now, they had a good start to the season in Bahrain. Had an okay performance, I would say, in Jeddah, especially with regards to beating, Magnussen in his fight with Hamilton. But they were kind of on the back foot with regards to setup this weekend, I think. And just want to wish Guenther Steiner a very happy birthday. It was his birthday this past weekend in Australia, but unfortunately, the team just couldn't pull out a points finish for him.
It would have been nice to celebrate his birthday that way, especially given his comments on what a few points would have meant last season.
That was incredible. He would have sex with the entire paddock if he got 2 points. I was like, that is awesome.
But I think part of it too is not just that Haas has maybe made a misstep with any improvements to their car. Part of it is that some of the other constructors have done well. Because think about how McLaren was doing the last few weeks. That would have bumped up Haas a little bit closer to the points. Same when you consider, Mercedes and a few of the other constructors as well. So I think the question now is like, you had a great base car. How do you wisely invest what you have? Because obviously they don't have the same budget as some of these other constructors in order to maintain that kind of forward momentum that you started with.
Right.
So,
And the cost cap helps out a bit there, but
mhm.
it's the technical innovation and kind of the availability of technical or innovative equipment that they could use to manufacture these parts. Or I would say put parts on the car to really be able to take or even have the data points really to figure out what they need to do. Because as you mentioned, the bigger teams like Mercedes and McLaren stepped up over these past 2 weeks, and now Haas has to respond.
Yeah.
We'll see how they respond, though. That's the question, because who knows what resources, the team that has not had many resources in the past as other teams, they need to find something, especially when they put all this time and money into this car. Why not go all out for the season? What do you got to lose?
Exactly. But still, I think a commendable race from the two drivers. I mean, what was it, P13, P14? It's nothing to turn your nose up at compared to years past. So, um,
Yeah.
I'm just hopeful that, I'm rooting for them. I would love it if they were able to more consistently score in the points. I think the team deserves it. I think they've got the talent behind the wheel. And again, like we said, we want interesting things this season. We're getting interesting things at the start, and what better way to shake things up than to get the team that's been last the last few seasons to, really get their foot in the door and kind of barge into a party they weren't invited to. So
Yeah, exactly. And I love to see the underdog just perform here and get into the points again. But we'll see in Imola. But
yeah.
with that, I think we're gonna do a new segment today, Erica.
Hello from Mexico. Just kidding. I'm home in Canada. What's up, everyone? It is Ricci. And, before we get into our new segment, I just wanted to just give a special shout out to Erica and Andrew for taking the lead on this week's episode. It is currently Sunday, April 17th, so I'm trying to edit all this right now as I'm back from vacation. I'm going to get this posted ASAP. Before we get into our new segment, just want to say make sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. We really appreciate all the love that you guys have been giving us. And also, you can find me playing video games at xRicci on Twitch. So yeah, thanks so much, and enough about me. I'm going to let Andrew and Erica continue this episode. Thanks, everyone.
What segment is that, Andrew?
So, as you may aware, we've been fans of DTS for the past 4 seasons, and in the first season, Australia 2018, Haas had a pretty good start to their weekend in race day until some issues in the pit stops, which caused both of them to DNF. And there was the birthday boy, Guenther Steiner, had an interesting quote where saying that, when calling Gene Haas, they started looking like effing rock stars out there, but then turned out to be effing wankers. So in inspiration of that, we are going to play Rockstar or Wanker. And I have a list of 10 names or 10 things about the Aussie GP. We're going to say, I'm going to bring it out, and we're going to determine if their performance or if the overall performance was Rockstar quality or Wanker quality.
Love it.
All right. So the first one, Erica, is Lance Stroll. Rockstar
Okay.
or Wanker this weekend?
0% shocking that I'm going to say this. Lance Stroll was a wanker this weekend. Oh my God.
This guy not know
Let's
where his freaking mirrors are? Like, my goodness.
like I was in shock when I was watching qualifying, and in particular, I mean, obviously we know this guy sometimes makes questionable choices in the best of conditions, but Latifi gave him the go through because he obviously had much more pace in the car at that moment. But then he completely slowed down. So Latifi, being on an outlap, I think Latifi was on an outlap, no, not a cool down, was like, well, if he's really cooling down, I'm going to pass him again. And then going around that bend, I get it's a little bit narrower, but I mean, you know where the cars are. You just passed them. And just to have zero awareness of your surroundings and to cause that kind of damage to another vehicle is like, you have mirrors for a reason. You would see the car in the mirrors if you paid any attention to your surroundings before you weave like that. And yeah, I'm speechless.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you. Quite wankerish in my opinion, his performance this weekend, especially like on Sunday. Like I get you're defending, but my dude, the guy's erratic, going all out everywhere, left, right, doesn't stick to his driving line in terms of being able to defend. And of course, he picks up a 5-second penalty, which affected him to the race and dropped him down to 12th. Like he was in 9th, 8th position at that point while trying to defend. But I wanted to say Aston Martin had probably one of the worst weekends overall for the cost cap. We had I think we had 3 crashes, dude. Both Vettel and Stroll crashing in FP3, which then they had to go. It was weird. They had a meeting with all of the engineers in the paddock to try, try and boost team morale in a way, to apologize to them for the copious amount of work that they had to do. And then we had another issue. Then we had Vettel with a mechanical fail. I think he drove like 30 laps this entire weekend. So going to be quite an expensive weekend for Lawrence Stroll and company there down at Aston Martin. And it's going to be a tough one, especially when it's this early in the season against the cost cap. You're already on the back foot to begin with. Now you're even more so on the back foot going forward.
It's disappointing, I think, for the team as a whole, because they had this car that was released to such acclaim and hope, and just it's not panning out how I think anyone really thought it would.
And to quote our good friend ex Ricci here at the podcast, he messaged us the other day and said that he should think Vettel should retire based on the way it's going on with Aston Martin. And I say he should retire, but maybe return with Red Bull in one more season and come back home effectively.
And you know what? I think we're not the only ones that think that. So
speaking of Red Bull is next on the list. Rockstar, Wanker, Erica for Red Bull.
This one's a little bit tough.
I'll go overall Wanker, because despite Checo's amazing performance to go P2, there's a couple of things that kind of stood in my mind that really bugged me this weekend about Red Bull. One, the reliability issue with Max Verstappen's car again.
Yeah,
the guy was in the double podium position points and his engine goes out again, or fire combusts in the back of the chassis where to go for that. So that's going to be another issue against the cost cap. But I don't know, in my opinion, in the race at the end of the race, when Checo was getting congratulated by his team for the P2, Horner just did not really seem that interested. He was more worried about Max and that going on. But I'm like, why don't you celebrate your guy getting P2 for you? Like,
at least got you some points.
Yeah, and got you some good points in the constructors. 18. I know it was something. It's less than obviously Ferrari and Mercedes, but at least Checo finished the work.
Mm-hmm.
And give him some props for that. So, they probably got a bit of an issue on their hands over at Red Bull with regards to reliability and not knowing what the heck was going on. And I'm sure Christian's very worried about that, but at least celebrate the many W's in this world, especially when it's your second driver.
Exactly. And I mean, that's not exactly surprising behavior from Red Bull, I think, toward Checo. I mean, it's pretty obvious. Max has been their go-to guy, and he's just kind of there to support in whatever way they feel. But yeah, with the reliability on the car, I think a lot of people were hoping that after that first race, they kind of worked their stuff out, because it was a very competitive racy car, obviously, in the last week, and things were looking good through quali and for the majority of the race. So yeah, I have to agree with you. Some wankers over there, both on a technical front and an emotional human reaction front. So
there we go. All right, number 3 is Danny Ricardo.
I'm gonna say Rockstar.
Yeah, I would say Rockstar too.
This guy has not always had the best performance at home, and he's definitely struggled with the McLaren team, but he pulled P6 I mean, that's pretty awesome.
And he was competitively driving with Lando, his teammate. So, and that's what you best can compare it against, right? He was 4/10 behind him. So again, very competitive in that car. And yeah, good vibes for his home GP. I think he was much more happier in that car this week. And they've been progressively getting better every week, which is great to see. And hopefully McLaren has figured it all out, I guess, in a sense. And now they can start continuing in the points finish for them and hopefully start to see some more wins.
Exactly. Gonna have a better 10 out in papaya.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Love it. All right, number 4. We talked about him earlier, but Alex Albon.
Rockstar. Hands, like...
Dude deserves to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame after this weekend. With controlling the tires like that, being able to take a crazy strategy and work it to perfection. Yeah. Just to secure. I know it's 1 point. I know you can't. It's 1 point, but that is one of the best points. It's Williams, and that was one of the best points I think I've ever seen, like, been rewarded in that case.
It was one of the few times where I was like, "Dang, this is a really stupid rule," and I wish that he didn't have to pit right now. Because for him, like I said before, to be carrying P7 and not have made a stop and be on that one set of tires, and I was like, "You earned these points. You earned where you're at right now."
Yeah, he deserved. Honestly, I wish they gave more points out for that, because that was just a wonderful performance overall. And that ties into, what are your thoughts on Williams overall as a team this weekend?
Honestly, some adversity overcome, got some people in points. I kind of want to say Rockstar.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Rockstar just on the sole fact that that Yost decided to put out this insane strategy, right? You might as well just take a risk and gamble, see what can happen with regards to the tire. The fact that it worked out the way it did, to have all 57 laps on that hard and then go to a soft right away to get that point, was incredible. I feel bad for Latifi. He's kind of been unlucky at times. And let's say the crash with Stroll, part of the blame is to Latifi. It's kind of like one of the most embarrassing crashes I've seen on an F1 track, but we'll get over it. We'll get over it in that case.
Just like kudos to the team for being able to put his car back together in a way that he was able to show up on Sunday. Really, because that was significant damage for what did not seem at first glance like it would be a crazy crash. So shout out to the Williams team on that one. Good job, folks.
Then we'll go to another Mercedes-based team. So Mercedes overall, what are your thoughts on them, Wanka or Rockstar?
I think Rockstar, honestly. P3, P4, well-deserved.
Yeah, especially with all the problems that they've been having to begin the season. To be able to finish P3, George getting his first podium as a Mercedes, and then Hamilton P4. I think there's a lot more in the tank for that team to give. And this is going to become a really interesting battle in the top 3 of constructors with Ferrari, Red Bull, and Mercedes, which finally we have a battle.
Yes.
It's been years, but finally have a battle. And then McLaren could come back with regards to that and, maybe make it a 4-horse race. Who knows?
You're speaking my language here right now. I would love the 4-horse race. That would be awesome.
I try my best. But it's cool. It's fun seeing, like, on social media, the interactions between Russell and Hamilton. They're doing a lot of things together. One of them
surfing.
Surfing, working out together. It's like a really good team down there. I think Hamilton's playing more of that role with regards to how should I say, being the mentor, as opposed to in this. It's kind of it's a different spot for Hamilton, but I think he'll still be able to excel at it going forward.
Absolutely.
All right, the next one we're going to talk about is Charles' teammate this weekend, Carlos Sainz.
Pains me greatly, but bit of a wanker this weekend. Not gonna lie.
A bit of a wanker this weekend, but I think this has to do with a bit of there's a bit of unluckiness to it, but also I didn't like Ferrari's team strategy with regards to starting him on the hards. I thought that was so stupid. I get it's something different, but those tires are so hard to warm up. I don't know how. They're just so hard to warm up that you could just tell he had literally zero grip on the first lap. And when he's trying to make moves with zero grip and cold tires, that's how he gets spin. And unfortunately, that was the end of his race. I think he would have been better off starting on mediums, I think. And I think they, like, Ferrari needed to trust the car better, that he can overtake.
Yes.
Give him the medium, give him a tire that's competitive and go over and overtake that. I think the P3 or in Q3, he was like a 10th away from the line before that red flag went out, which I think caused him to start P9 overall. But I agree, Erica. Bit of a wankerish weekend for him.
He's been fighting the car a fair bit the last while, but like you said with the tires, I think there's a couple reasons for it. Like one, it's a different compound than I think they're used to using for a hard tire. And two, I think one of the regulation changes this year, usually they can kind of like preheat the tires a bit before they put them on the car, I think. And they dropped the temperature you're allowed to heat them up to. So you're putting on colder tires and like that's just not good for anyone at that point.
And one out lap, I mean, we can see even in quality, one out lap doesn't warm up the tires enough for it to really grip, right? It takes two.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I think Sainz, unfortunately, has been more of a, has been based both on unluckiness, but also based on his team.
Yeah.
All right. What are your thoughts? Okay. Wanka Rockstar on the new track layout.
I liked it. So I'm going to say Rockstar.
Yeah, I agree. I thought there was a lot more opportunities to take over or to overtake this weekend.
And just some like interesting stuff happening. Like it, and like I just found it an enjoyable track to watch. Like not so many turns that you feel like you have whiplash. Like I'm kind of curious how maybe that would have panned out with that chicane if they had kept that instead of like the long curve, if it would have been too much. But you know, I was a little hesitant like hearing about all the DRS zones at first and all that kind of stuff, but and especially like toward the end of the race we had that DRS train going on and I was like, "Oh boy, is this going to get like really boring and predictable about what's about to happen here or what's going on?" But I thought it was a fun race, not just because we saw people doing great stuff, but just you know, a track where we could get some things happening instead of it just being kind of like a line going or predictable in terms of which cars would pass other ones. So
I agree. I think if they could improve one more thing to that track is put lights there, make it a night race so I can wake up at a proper time and watch it.
I would also enjoy that. That would be phenomenal. Please consider it.
And then we won't have to hear all the European fans. We love you, European fans. Trust us. We won't have to hear them complain about having to get up at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning to watch a race. They can get up at noon, you know, enjoy their full English breakfast to begin the day and enjoy the race.
Exactly.
All right, number 9, the man of the weekend, Charles Leclerc.
Oh, amazing. The car was incredible today, really. Well done, guys.
Oh, Rockstar.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm definitely Rockstar. Like the guy
gets
the
fastest
away.
lap.
Oh.
He gets fastest lap and is like, not good enough. Another faster lap.
You just pulled the DJ Khaled with the fastest laps. Another one. Another one. Another one. And then at the end, he actually had to go for another one because he was almost getting caught out by because Fernando decided like screw it, let's go for the fastest lap for fun at the end. And Charles was able to get it despite that he would have lost it if he didn't go for it. So good calling by him, but he just looks like a totally different driver this year. And it really is his championship to lose at this point. I know we're 3 rounds in, but
still
tell me otherwise at this point, right?
Well, and I like it because obviously I came back to the sport a couple of years ago, so I hadn't really heard all the hype around Charles. Like I didn't see him when he was racing with Sauber before he went over to Ferrari. So I mean, it's not like I'm like, oh yeah, this kid was always in the running. For me, it was kind of coming in and being like, you've got to earn my attention here. And you know, aside from the looks department,
he is a good-looking character. Yeah.
But just I don't know, I've really enjoyed watching him drive. He seems very at ease behind the wheel of this car, which is great because I know last year it seemed like every once in a while he was getting on the radio like, this thing's undrivable, I don't like it. So I'm digging it. I'm on the bandwagon, man.
No, I'm loving it. My dad's definitely on the bandwagon. He loves Charles Leclerc this season. So Charles, at least you got one supporter in my family, including me too. All right, but last but not least, the last person of Rockstar or Wanker segment, it's the FIA, Erica. What are your thoughts on the FIA overall?
I think the FIA are a bunch of wankers.
Yeah. Like, why are we giving Sebastian Vettel a $5,000 fine for trying to enjoy the track and, you know, connect with fans? I know you can't be on the track with a moped, but come on, like the guy's had a rough day and he's trying to connect with his fans, and yet $5,000.
And I mean, so it would be one thing if it was like very busy and a ton of cars were still out and there was a risk of, some kind of physical harm coming from that. Like if someone comes flying around a corner and he's just on this little moped. But I don't know, it seemed excessive. There were also a few other things where, just penalties maybe should have been greater in some instances or like less in others. I don't know.
Also, what a weird decision to like have. I don't know if you noticed this, but we had a skip in the compounded tires. We had C5, C3,
what was that?
and C2.
Yeah.
I know. Like, what was like? How wild is that? Why would you skip? I don't get that.
It like I'm doing T-Rex arms because I don't really know what else to do with them. But like, I don't know. I think that too makes it more difficult for the drivers and like for strategy planning. If you've got such a jump in terms of compound, like that's, I don't know, it makes more sense when it's incremental in my mind, and that's what they typically do. So for them to have done this just seems like, oh, we're gonna pull stuff out of thin air and make changes for no reason just because we feel like it. So FIA,
Fans,
I'm not your fan.
Yeah. Fans, let us know if you've ever seen that before, because I haven't.
I can't recall. Here, let me see. I'm gonna search. Have the FIA ever skipped?
But speaking of the FIA, I kind of thought it was funny yesterday when Toto Wolff had some comments about Michael Massey and how from the drivers' briefings that when they were conducted, there was a bunch of disrespect coming from him and how he's treating the drivers, and that he was immune to any feedback, which I thought was quite funny. Introducing, Toto firing shots and literally calling him a liability for the sport. I'm like, those are some words.
They're harsh words, but I don't think it's nothing that hasn't already been said or alluded to in some way, but hearing it from someone as high up among the teams and as respected as Toto, I think adds a little more gravity than just like a commentator kind of saying it off the cuff or like a reporter. But I don't think he was wrong. I mean, like, I obviously have no idea what goes on in some of those driver briefings. We don't know all the details of it, but I mean, you've got some people that are pretty level-headed in the sport, and if some of those guys are like, I felt disrespected, it's got to be pretty significant and like, what they're getting from it.
You can tell from like previous, like, God rest his soul, Charlie. He was the one. He was like the teacher that everyone respected there. Mm-hmm. No one gave Charlie shit. And Charlie was fair. So I hope we have, I don't have any problems anyways with our race director so far. Yeah, I feel like the penalties could have been harsher this weekend, but I think so far it's been run smooth overall.
Yeah.
In that department.
Just to circle back to the tire compounds, it does look like they've done that in the past, but it's pretty infrequent. So Pirelli went to the 3 tire compounds per event back in 2016, and usually they're sequential. Mm-hmm. But it looks like at least, I'm sure there's other instances too, but the first thing that came up here was for the Chinese Grand Prix in 2018. They skipped a compound there as well.
Okay.
So that was like it's not something that's done
4 years
super
ago.
Frequently.
Mm-hmm.
But they have done it.
It could be like a manufacturing side too, if they haven't been able to get enough of that from the car going forward. But that was the end of our segment of Rockstar or Wanker. I thought that was pretty fun. Again, happy birthday to you, Guenther.
Happy birthday.
We love you. All right, Erica, you had a fan question today. What was the question?
We had a fan question?
I think you said we had a fan question.
No, I said I was looking and we didn't have. I thought we did, but it was when we talked about before.
Fans, send us your questions.
We want your questions. We want to talk things more, and we need your help to do it.
Yeah, we had so many questions on the last episode. We thought that was great. Feel free to keep sending us more. We are always open to answering them. I guess with that, let's go talk about fantasy. I had a pretty decent fantasy weekend on my F1 app. Grid Rivals, not so much. Well, I didn't have as bad a weekend as a few other people, Ricci. But nevertheless, on F1, I can't believe they still let you turbo Leclerc. Like, I'm just going to leave that locked in position all year round. Yeah. because he gets me like 98 to 100 points each weekend.
Like I said, the only time I'm not going to turbo him is when I mega him on the F1 app, because that seems to be, I think, a winning strategy. But yeah, so for the three of us on Grid Rival, I actually have the worst weekend of the three of us. Andrew, for this weekend, you got the most points specifically. You got 925. Ricci had the second most points this weekend with 913, and I was last with 817. Hey. But our standings kind of shook up a bit. So Ricci is still at the top with 2,972 points total after the first three races. Andrew, you moved up to second. So you've got 2,789 points, but I am only 6 behind you in third with 2,783. So
that's okay. The hunt for first place is still on.
I'm coming for you.
No, I'm coming for you. I'm going for you too, in terms of like just being that neck and neck. But just
you got a battle for the midfield.
Yeah, exactly. I'll make sure I'm not erratic in my defense.
Exactly. But yeah, I now have to figure out what I'm gonna do this coming time. We got to pick some, I don't know about you, but I didn't. So for those who haven't used Grid Rival, it's kind of interesting because like F1, you can like swap out 3 drivers for free every week. Well, I guess make 3 substitutions because constructor counts toward that. You can pay for the other ones. Grid Rival, you like lock in for a certain number of weeks every one you have, and you have to pay if you break your contract early, which is a very cool concept, I think. And I was cheap to do it, and I think I should have done it this past week because clearly that bit me in the butt. But
like
yeah,
there was nothing to indicate otherwise that there was going to be a kind of a change of the guard this weekend with regards to the McLaren and Mercedes coming back up into like the top of the midfield. And then, Haas having a bad weekend overall. I really don't know what to think for going into next week in terms of Imola for strategy. I might just kind of roll with the same lineup and see where the cards fly, because again, it's so early in the season and we have another 2-week break where other teams can now bring more upgrades.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
Really do your research, kids, this weekend with regards to fantasy. But I'm going to stay true to the triple Ferrari because Sainz just had an unlucky bad weekend. Nevertheless, Charles is, on a tear right now. It is the home GP next weekend in Imola. There's going to be a ton out for the Tifosi. So I don't see why not to get triple Ferrari this weekend and, hammer them when it comes to fantasy.
I think I'm going to do the same thing, honestly. Not super creative here. I'm like, me too. But
we want to provide the best fantasy advice possible on this app.
Yes, because we are experts.
Yeah. We are experts.
I have so many of the stats, and it's great.
Well, speaking of which, next race will be in Imola. Ironically, I will be away in Mexico. I'm going to a family wedding. Just south of Cancun. So that should be fun, but you may not hear me next episode. Ricci will be back and Erica will be here to stay.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, should be a fun one. Definitely going to try and watch it at the resort. It's an all-inclusive, so.
Ooh, very nice. Have some mimosas with that one.
Or something. Yeah. Wake up with a margarita and just watch watch Ferrari absolutely tear it up. Yeah. Well,
but yeah, you're all stuck with me again, so enjoy that one. But
I think it'll be fine. The worst part is that Ricci has to come back next week.
Ugh, that guy.
Lose.
Ugh.
Have fun editing this one, Ricci.
Yeah, watch him just cut that out. Yeah. Nevertheless, Erica, send us off.
Thank you so much for listening to the F1 podcast, folks. As we have said before, I have been Erica, and many thanks to the one joining me on the podcast today, Andrew.
Thank you very much, Erica, as well.
You're very welcome. Please remember to like and subscribe. You can like and subscribe the F1 podcast. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. I'm going to drop this.
Keep going.
And you can also find us on Instagram at f1.podcast. And we would love to hear more questions for you. Please leave us comments, like and subscribe. Like I said, like and subscribe. And just do it up. Thank you so much for your support, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. As Erica said, like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe.
Aussie accent.
You know when Crocodile Dundee when you say that's not a knife. That's a knife. You know?
When foreigners try to do an Aussie accent, I notice they really open their mouth a lot. Like, that's not a knife.